and welcome to Reopen the Gate, the Guiders Against Trans Exclusion official podcast. We are your hosts, Elle, she, her.
And lo, they, she. So this week we'll be talking about the upcoming local elections in Scotland, Wales, and some counties across England, encouraging you to make sure that you use your vote as well as laying out the information published by each party regarding their stances on specifically trans rights.
Firstly, before we get started, we want to state that we have designed this podcast to be as impartial and unbiased as we can. Today's episode isn't about telling you what to think or who to vote for. It is instead about trying to give you a clear, factual snapshot of where we are and different political parties have publicly stood so that you can make up your own mind. At the end of the day, this is your vote and it is your opinion that matters. The next thing we're going to talk about is, are you ready to vote? In which we'll be going over a small checklist on how you can prepare to take part in an election and what you should be doing in the run-up to in the next couple of weeks.
So the first thing that you need to make sure of is that you're actually registered to vote in the first place. All UK elections require you to register prior to voting, and the deadline for this election was the 20th of April. So if you haven't registered, unfortunately, you won't be able to vote just this year. But if you're not quite sure, all of the information is available online, and it's really simple just to check. All you need is your personal details, like your national insurance number, your name, your address. Please be aware that if you've moved between the last election and this one, or changed your name, you may need to register again, even if you voted before. So it's definitely worth checking, even if you think you are.
Yeah. Next, you have to check the date of your next election and when it's taking place, as well as checking what your local polling station is. If you are registered, by this time you should have received or will be receiving a polling card in the post with all the information that you need, but you can also check online and via your local council for any information that you might need. Nations will have different processings during election periods, and for some of you, you may have to cast multiple votes. So please be prepared for this and research in advance so you know what you are voting for and for what. If you're unable to attend on the voting day, you can also request prior to the voting day for a postal vote. But as always, please check this as possible well in advance so there's no surprises or panic on the run-up or on the day. However, if you are available on the day, make sure you can check what times your polling station is open and that you have at least one form of valid ID on you. Polling stations are usually open between 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. on election day, but this can vary. Once you are there, the polling station attendants will direct you and provide you further, more specific instructions. If you are prepared, this can be very quick, simple, and it can do a lot of good.
It's a lot of information we know, but the last step is actually voting, right? And that's where things get a bit more complicated. So in this next section, like we said at the beginning, we're going to go over each party's publicly claimed stances from their manifestos, specifically in relation to trans rights, so that you have the facts to make your own decision. What's important to remember is that voting isn't always about finding a party or candidate that you agree with 100%, but you'll likely find one that reflects a lot of what you care about, and that's where your choice comes in.
So let's get into it. As we go through this analysis, we are basing this checklist, if you will, off of three main contention points in the wider debate over trans rights. So those three are going to be access to healthcare, and within this we mean access to gender affirming healthcare and anything that you essentially would need as part of your healthcare rights. Second one is going to be your access to protection of your rights. So that includes your right to exist, your right to be protected within different stances from discrimination, from hate, etc. And the last one we're going to be clarifying is the party's stance on conversion therapy, which is a highly contentious and very damaging issue currently. So, with that, we are going to pass it over and we are going to just read out based off of manifestos that have been publicly released. We will have the quotes on screen, which will show these, and a simple checkbox of which ones they agree with or don't agree with. To start with, we have the Conservative Party. In terms of healthcare, they have had a more cautious approach, including restrictions and review of gender-affirming care for under 18s mainly, though no direct opposition beyond that. in terms of their rights to protection. They have a focus on clarifying biological sex in law and maintaining single-sex spaces over trans protection rights. And in terms of conversion therapy, they have been very committed to banning conversion therapy in principle, though proposals have been varied and have not always included gender identity.
Okay, the second party we're going to discuss is the Labour Party. So their views on healthcare is that they support improving NHS gender services while backing reviews into the current care models. As for the rights for protection, they support the Equality Act protections alongside maintaining some single-sex provisions. For conversion therapy, they have committed to a full ban, which includes trans people. So they are fully against conversion therapy, including gender conversion. There is also Scottish Labour and Welsh Labour. They generally have very similar um, stances. They'll be on screen for you just now. Scottish Labour supports protections or rights for protections, but have taken a more cautious stance on self-identification. And the Welsh Labour have commitments to improving access to healthcare, specifically in NHS Wales. But they're the key main differences between them and Labour as a whole.
Yeah. Next, we have the Liberal Democrats. In terms of access to gender-affirming healthcare, they support expanding access and reducing waiting times for all in general. In terms of protection of rights, they support self-identification and non-binary recognition in all platforms. And in terms of conversion therapy, they support a comprehensive ban, including gender identity. So a full ban on all conversion therapy.
Okay, the next party is the Green Party of England and Wales. And then we'll talk about the difference for the Scottish Green Party. So their stance on healthcare is that they support an expanded access to gender-affirming care. As for protection of rights, they have a strong support for self-identification and for non-binary recognition, and they support a full ban of all conversion therapies. Scottish Green Party is largely similar and want to expand and make sure services are accessible.
Our next party is Reform UK. In terms of accessing gender-affirming healthcare, they are largely opposed supporting restrictions, especially for younger people. In terms of protection of trans rights, they again are largely opposed with more advocacy for biological definitions, using them within laws to provide single-sex spaces. And in terms of conversion therapy, their positions are less clearly defined in their manifestos, but their broader policy framing is critical of current gender identity approaches.
Okay, now we're going to talk about two parties that are specific to both Scotland and Wales because we feel it's important to give a full perspective on those nations as well. Again, please do more research into your local election spaces. So first off is the Scottish National Party, otherwise known as the SNP. So they have committed to supporting improving access through NHS Scotland for gender-affirming care. They've backed self-identification through gender recognition reform legislation in terms of protecting rights, and they do support a full ban on conversion therapy, including conversion therapy for gender identity.
Our next party is Plaid Cymru. They have supported expanded access to gender-affirming healthcare. They have support of self-identification and broader recognition in terms of protecting trans rights, and they support a full ban to all conversion therapy. We do understand that these are not all the parties that will be running in all local and devolved nation elections, and that there are large parties that will have a larger role to play within those elections. But we just feel that these were the most consistently involved parties that we felt we had to introduce and clarify. Well, I hope that information was helpful and useful, especially if you're still deliberating or up in the air, as many people are, especially in this political climate. But as always, we do have a call for action this week, and this one is maybe one of our most important yet, which is just to vote. Everybody's vote matters now, especially more than ever. We've seen it in recent local elections that it can be very close between the two most voted. So we urge you to do what you can, take on what we've said, do more research, especially about your local constituency, and make your voice heard.
Yep, entirely. Making your voices heard is the most powerful thing that you can do at the minute. So whether you are voting on the May 7th, or if you're in Northern Ireland or a part of England that isn't currently holding their elections, we do ask you to continue writing to your elected representatives, and of course to Bridget Phillipson, who's the Minister for Women and Equalities. These can make the real difference.
Yeah. And as always, we just always encourage you to use your voice and to be heard by as many people as possible. So we hope that you'll take this information on and hopefully help us spread some good in this community as well. So thank you so much for tuning in and for listening to this episode of Reopen the Gate. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to subscribe and stay updated for the following episodes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.